Welcome to Together We Rise. This season, titled For the Parents We Are and the Kids They'll Be, we'll explore the joys, challenges, and transformative power of parenting, one honest conversation at a time.
Whether you're here to gain tools, share a laugh, or find reassurance, this is a space where imperfection is celebrated, connection is nurtured, and growth is always possible.
Each episode dives into topics that matter, from embracing the messy reality of parenting to fostering resilience, self-worth, and authentic relationships.
Together, we'll uncover practical insights, powerful stories, and the heart of what it means to parent with intention.
So, take a deep breath, settle in, and join us as we navigate this beautiful, complicated journey. One step,
one story,
and one lesson at a time. Welcome back for another episode of Together We Rise. With you here today is Tonya,
Maggie,
and Paula.
We're excited to tackle another parenting topic with you today. This one all about the parent emotional toolkit, if you will. How we work on our own regulation during the stressful parts of parenting.
This is like the most important topic for me. Like, give me all the tools. So when your kid is dysregulated, what are some of the things that you're doing to keep yourself regulated?
Like yelling and that stuff? That's what you're talking about? Or
Yeah, those are the things that I'm already very familiar with.
F-bombing.
I've got those. So what are other things?
What are the ways to help us be calm?
Yeah.
When I think about this, and I asked my kids, because they're adults now, and I asked them what it was like in the moments of rage, because that's what my son struggled with, was not just naughty, it was full-blown unsafe rages. And how could I stay regulated during that time? And this was way before I was a therapist, so it's not because of therapy skills. One, I think I have an image in my mind of him as the littlest kid when he joined our family. So one of the things that I recommend to my parents is the place they go to the most when they're dysregulated. So that could be the kitchen corner, that could be in the bathroom, it could be their bedroom, wherever they tend to go to calm themselves. Put a picture on the inside of the cabinet of a moment that just melts your soul. Like when you look at that picture, everything floods in of why you love this kid, everything that just makes you happy. It could be that, or it could be a piece of art that they did. I recommend they do it for every kid and their spouse.
Oh, I love that.
Because there are moments, right? We need to do that too. So I picture that picture in my head, and I remember if I yell, I will have to work so much harder. Because I'd undo what we were working so hard on for attachment for us.
Yeah.
So that's my first thing that I think about when I try to think about how did I keep myself regulated. So that's one of them. The other big one is it's not about you.
Yeah.
And that is so hard. Oh my goodness, that is the hardest concept. They're dysregulated. So it really isn't about you. And that is when I wrapped my head around that, I think that's when it became the easiest.
Sometimes recently I've been taking like just 60 seconds in the car before I walk through the door, and it's like kind, caring, and respectful. Like, how do I walk in this door with joy and with love and intention and connection? And I think reminding myself of those values of who I want to be as a parent allow me then during their dysregulation to be able to breathe through that a little bit, because I know, like, how do I want to help them grow through this moment?
When I'm in my best space, I'm so good, right? Like, I can handle all the dysregulation. But when you said it's not about you in that moment, a lot of times when I've lost my cool, it is because I'm feeling like not a good parent in that moment. And so it is harder for me to stay regulated because my kid's dysregulation is sending me messages about me as a parent. And so I have to kind of combat that and say, hold on, what this kid is doing right now is not actually a reflection of the job that I'm doing as a parent.
Yeah, I think that's really hard to remind ourselves of that when it can feel personal and you get wrapped up in the rhythm of it in the moment, the energy of it in the moment. Paula, what do you do to remind yourself it's not about me?
I just say it in my head, right? I love what one of my friends said. They said, your son and the way you're raising him, you have all the normal stuff, the normal developmental chaos of life, right? Our life was just plus. So I, on some level, didn't have the luxury of not being that present because the dysregulation would have escalated beyond what any of us would have wanted. One of the things that I was able to model for him is it's okay to mess up. I remember once I picked him up from high school and he had done something that I needed to pick him up early. And it was like the third day in a row. And I was just like, dude, seriously, you're like 15 now. You need to just deal. And I was like, not my best self. And instead of just being calm in the car and taking him home and doing, calming things with him and non-judgmental, I laid into him. And he started to cry. And at that moment I went, oh, no. And so we just sat in the car and I got regulated. And then I said, I am so sorry, dude. That was not a good thing. And so we just talked about it, and he like kids do, they forgive you, right, when you make a mistake. That's some of the things that pop into my head is all the hard work we've done, I don't want to undo it. And it's the same, I think, with parents that have kids that are fully attached. You want that connection to be there, and you don't want to damage that.
What for you guys comes up and makes you oftentimes the most dysregulated in connection to your kids? When I think about that question for myself, like the thing that keeps resonating is like fear. Fear that the behavior that they're showing right in that moment is going to mean something in the future. Or rather than just being present, I'm like consumed by worry and fear. And am I making the right decisions right now? Am I setting the right limits and boundaries while giving the right amount of love and nurturance? Like it feels hard to navigate through that, and I think it causes that panic sometimes.
Yeah, I think fear is like a big piece of it. When I'm seeing my kids struggle and I feel like the things that I'm doing aren't working, it's like, oh no, are they never going to figure this out? And that is what it ultimately is like, am I raising a kid who's not going to be able to figure out how to manage their feelings when they're 25, 35, 45 years old?
Not even taking into account the judgment that we feel as parents. And the judgment we feel, most parents, but those of us with kids with behavior needs or trauma or autism or any number of behaviors, we already feel judged all the time. And so not judging ourselves, I think, was probably the biggest gift that I gave myself. Is I really tried to separate his behavior from who I was as a person. That his behavior was an autonomic response the majority of the time. And that really helped me to understand that he is dysregulated, not by choice. Nobody wants to be that way. He would even tell you, now that he's 23, he would tell you himself, I did not want to be yelling or screaming or throwing things.
It makes me think about what we're comfortable modeling for, like related to emotions, and what emotions we're maybe even uncomfortable modeling ourselves. Like I think about generationally how different generations are raised, and there's been lots of times people will talk about like it wasn't safe for us to show feelings. So now we're trying to raise little kids to say it's okay to show feelings, and we may still not be modeling how to show those feelings appropriately.
Sometimes for me, like a lot of my kids' feelings sometimes feel disrespectful, but that comes from my own childhood where like I think a lot of times my big feelings felt disrespectful to my parents, even though that is not really what was happening. I wasn't really being disrespectful, I was really being dysregulated. But those messages still live in me, and so especially my oldest, who is just a carbon copy sometimes of me, when he's really dysregulated and he's struggling in those moments, I sometimes feel disrespected, and so I respond in this way of like, quit disrespecting me. But I have to pause and be like, hold on, like I know this feeling, I know this dysregulation, I know what this actually is. This isn't disrespect, this is dysregulation, and I have to stop and oftentimes do the repair of like, I didn't respond the way that I wanted to respond, buddy. That wasn't fair.
I have a phrase that that I used, especially a lot when he was little, but I teach my parents now with my families that I work with, and that is, I love you too much too. So when I would get dysregulated, and I knew it, and I knew that it wasn't going to be over as quickly as it needed to be in the moment, I would say, I love you too much to argue about this. I'm going to take a quick break. Let's set the timer. I'd set the timer for like 3 minutes, and I'll be back. And, you know, we'd tag team, and my husband would be in charge or watch him because he couldn't be left alone like that. But that was probably the best phrase. Now, what's funny is, as a 23-year-old, he has said that more than once to me. So when he's asked me a question or I've responded in a snarky manner, he's like, I love you too much, Mom. I'm going to go to my room now. I'm like, it's the best, but yet it's like, whoa, dude. But I think that helped me a lot. One, acknowledge that I am dysregulated. I mean, in the moment, I'm not thinking I'm dysregulated. I'm mad, or I'm hurt, or I'm worried, or I'm scared. And all of those are really big feelings, and I may not be in control of what's going to come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And words matter.
Words do matter so much, and I think I struggled having such high expectations on myself as being the perfect parent that like I just have to be regulated all the time. I have to. And then there was a point where I was like, saw a little bit in one of my kids this like, show me emotion, Mom. Like, you should be experiencing emotion based off of my emotion. And I had gone to a play therapy training that was like synergetic play therapy or something, where they talked about like a cathartic release being like the matching of emotion. And it made me think like, goodness, like I'm actually not really teaching my kids anything by just numbing and pretending that I don't have these emotions, because I am sad right now and I am frustrated and I am overwhelmed, and how I give space for those emotions while also staying regulated, because both those things can be true.
And I think a lot of that happens as our kids develop, right? Like my feelings and my emotions for an 18-month-old kid doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like they don't care. They don't have capacity to think about my feelings. But my 10-year-old absolutely has capacity to think about my feelings and take into account my feelings and consider my feelings. And so it is actually more developmentally appropriate and healthier for me to share more of my feelings with you than it is for me to like keep those for myself.
I often think about how we had to be his frontal lobe. That, you know, we would talk about things as if he were a toddler when he was 5, 6, 7, 8, because we were developmentally behind in that way. And so that probably helped a lot, because I had to talk about it. I am really frustrated right now. It feels like you did that on purpose. I know you didn't, but I feel like you did, and I don't like it. Yeah. And so we would model that, and then we would even purposefully model for both boys when Paul and I were not happy with each other. I would say, you know, that's not okay. Take the trash out now. I asked you earlier, and you know my love language, and I'm done. And so, you know, we would model, how do we argue? How do we allow ourselves to be frustrated? But we also model, how do we love, and how do we laugh, and how do we tease? And I think that was came more of an automatic for me, because we were so used to being his frontal lobe.
Yeah, I think that that's such an interesting point, that some of this modeling that happens, it doesn't happen just with our kids, but it happens with the other adults or the other people in our lives, and how kids see us handle dysregulation or handle our big feelings in the context of relationships, and then still be worthy of love. And so I can lose my temper or my chill with my husband, and my kids can still see him still giving me love and saying, Mom's still worthy of love even if she's grumpy. Mom is still worthy of love even if she's irritated. And so I think those are such powerful messages for us to give our kids, that when you're not at your best, you're still worthy of love.
And what that repair looks like. So much of what helps us get back to a baseline or not stay in that dysregulated state is finding harmony back in the relationships that matter to us.
Both of you now have talked about like saying those things out loud. Like Paula, you talked about like being that frontal lobe for your son. part of that was saying all of these things that you were thinking, doing, feeling. And so I think sometimes that can be really powerful of like, after a moment of dysregulation, storytelling what happened,
Oh, wow, yeah.
storytelling how you got through that and how you fixed it. Kids respond so well to that. And I think even older kids respond to it, and it just changes how you tell the story.
Yeah, it makes me think also how then we're vulnerable or lead into like, I'm emotionally drained. Like I have a low window of tolerance right now, meaning like I could get really dysregulated by you simply not taking a shower when you know it's your responsibility right now to go take a shower. So how you are aware of that as a parent and communicate that and take care of yourselves through that. What are your guys' thoughts?
Being proactive as much as possible. When I would come home and I knew that I was exhausted or something had happened, I would just announce to everybody, Mama's taking a half hour, nothing's gonna happen in the next half hour that I need to address. So the driveway moments for me is if I know if I get out of this car, I'm gonna be snippy, then I stay in.
Yeah.
Breathe, or back in the day, put a CD on in the car because it was still CD time. All the cars still had CDs when my kids were little. But now I would use other things, on my phone that would, I know, relax me. But announcing, saying, hey, I'm really tired. I saw 7 kids today. We had 2 teachers out, whatever. And that really helps because he's an adult now. But it helps him now to know, oh, I can't info dump on mom. He knows that it's not that I don't want to engage and that I don't care. It's that right now I don't have the capacity. And it's also teaching respect. Respect that we all get dysregulated, and that goes for letting them be dysregulated. So I played for Maggie a little audio of my son when he was 10. So one of the things that I encourage parents to think about that I work with is your kid needs a safe place to vent. We all have safe places we can vent, or at least I hope you do. So my son was mad at me, and he went up to his room and vented in the most creative way possible. And he sang a song, and he made up words to this song that was really derogatory to mom and annoying mom even more. But I let him do it without consequence. When he was ready to come back downstairs, I didn't yell at him or even say anything about the song or anything like that. So I think allowing our kids the grace that we want is a big factor.
How do you guys really allow kids to be a teacher of emotions?
Man, my kids teach me stuff about my own emotions like every single day. Like I feel like I am learning so much more about myself through parenthood than I could have learned otherwise, because they just really reflect things back to you. And I think for me, like one of the things that my kids teach me is like they know that I'm in a bad mood sometimes before I even know that I'm in a bad mood, or they know that I'm tired even before I know that I'm tired. And I can see kind of like the way that they pick up on my energy. I think that they just reflect that back to us so well. And so it's kind of like, how open am I going to be to see some of these messages from them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that my kids have taught me is that even negative feelings are okay. I think I was hard on myself related to this throughout my own life, and then I was so accepting of their negative emotions, quote unquote, right? You guys have heard me share the philosophy that there's no negative emotions. Emotions come and go. They're a spectrum of emotions. But when they were sad or angry or frustrated or all these things, I think for me, I'd shut down a lot of those feelings. And then becoming a parent who is like, no, I'm going to accept all their emotions. It's like you can't give from which you haven't fully embraced yourself. And so it took some reflection on my part to say, how do I also then embrace those very feelings and accept that those feelings are okay for myself?
If you're never showing sadness, you're never showing anger, you're never showing frustration, really what the kid's message is getting is like, those actually aren't okay things to show. So like if I want to be a grown-up, if I want to be an adult, like I can't show those things. And so it is really a beautiful gift to give our kids to say like, all humans get to have all of these feelings.
One of the things that I think about the most as it relates to what our kids teach us is how we have this balance of being in charge and coordinating the chaos, but ultimately not wanting to control our kids. how do you guys navigate staying regulated during those moments? There are times that I feel like I am the nagger of the house. Did you clean up this? Did you put this away? Did you do your reading? And just managing, kind of staying regulated during the pressure of all the things that we want for our kids.
So what we thought about, and it actually came after doing trainings as an Adlerian play therapist, that it gave me the language for what we were trying to do. And that is, both of my kids are comfort kids. And so when I wrapped my head around that I do not, throughout the day, especially on a Saturday, I would tell them Friday night or Saturday morning, hey guys, these are the things we need to get done as a family. I don't care. I have to believe myself. I have to believe that I don't care. Because if I did care, then I wouldn't say that. But I would say, I don't care when it gets done. It needs to be done by 7 p.m. and then whatever the consequence was going to be. But one of the things that was really hard for both my husband and I was to not add on to that list. So I would tell them the things they needed to do. It was 5 or less. It was like, clean out the kitty litter, take out the trash, put your clothes in the laundry. But it wasn't do laundry. It wasn't clean your room. It was specific. And if I felt I needed to tack something on because I just noticed it, I would say, I'm so sorry, guys. And then say, you can choose to do it today or you can choose to do it tomorrow. But it needs to get done and I'll let you decide. That helped so much, especially from like 5th grade on.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we don't want our boss to come up to us and give us tasks and then at 3:30 pile on a bunch more demanding they be done by 5, and we're like, what? That's, I think, what really helped me wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
I think that's really helpful to use the metaphor of like, we don't want our boss, because sometimes it's like teaching real life skills in this. And I worry about, them not going on to be very productive adults who are contributing to society. If I'm like, well, I'm the one who's always having to remind you to do every little thing, but giving space that, like, had I not been so neurotic on it, they probably would get it done. Just making sure I'm staying regulated enough that allows it to happen when it needs to happen. And maybe I am a control parent. I'm a control parent. And I need it done by noon, right? And that's okay to negotiate the timelines perhaps. But allowing that sense of agency or autonomy is what I hear you saying, for them to feel successful in that, because it probably doesn't feel good to hear me continually to harp and remind. It probably doesn't help them feel successful in what they're accomplishing either.
And it also gives them the opportunity, just like we would want with our bosses, to be able to share our grievances. And so this, this for my son happened, we said he was a little lawyer in training. This happened, from like 3rd grade on. But it's been interesting as an adult. We have purposely left the dishwasher not emptied for like 4 days, and all the dishes are piling up. There's only 3 of us in the house, and we're just wondering, is he going to notice this? Is there something that's going to happen? And so I just said to him, hey, you live in our house now, because he had to move back, the dishes. And he just looks at me, he's like, well, I thought about emptying the dishwasher, but I know that Dad gets mad when I don't put XYZ where XYZ belongs, and then he can't find it, and then I feel he's frustrated, and then that makes me frustrated, and so I just don't do it. That's a very enlightened thing for him to say, but I gave him space. I didn't yell at him, hey, dude, why aren't you emptying this dishwasher? It's been this way for a week. We're now on paper plates.
Yeah.
I gave him space, and that's what we tried to do when they were little.
What you're kind of saying is like, you say what you notice, right? Like, I'm noticing this thing. That gives some space for the kid to say, oh, here's like this explanation, or here's this reason, or here's like more information for you. That again, like, helps me not have an emotional reaction or response immediately. Instead, it provides that space. So some of this like regulation stuff is slowing down.
I think as parents, we could get caught up in the, I don't care what the rule is, what I say goes, and challenging ourselves to say, like, that probably means I'm pretty dysregulated. That probably means I'm feeling bigger emotions than maybe I'm aware of or willing to admit to myself right now.
And there are times where we have to change the rule. And so it's kind of like in those moments being able to stay regulated enough to give the reason, to give the explanation, so that kids then can work through their own emotions around it, because they will have emotions around it. And knowing that when we do that, when we offer that space, that explanation, it helps them have the space and time to regulate as well.
And I think I challenge myself, like, am I saying this right now, or am I making up this rule right now, or am I doing this because I'm frustrated, irritated, annoyed?
And we stay way more regulated when we are connected to our values. I think that's another thing, that when we're not connected to our values, those are the times when we feel way more dysregulated.
I often think of how we can just help ourselves regulate, help our kids regulate by being proactive. And I think that's one of the skills that did not come naturally to my ADHD brain, was to be proactive and consistent. It is definitely one of the top 5 gifts my kids have given me, is learning to be 2 steps ahead, but not an ADHD 2-step ahead, but more of an intentional 2 steps ahead. Like, I know they're going to be tired. I know if we haven't eaten. So the metaphor in our house is, are you a toddler? So mom is a toddler when she's hungry, hot, or tired.
Yes.
So you need to feed me, cool me off, and put me to sleep. Which one of those needs to happen? So everyone has their own toddler behavior. And so that was sort of our go-to phrase, so it wasn't judgmental.
I love that.
And it helped us also not be judgmental, but also help us be playful. So that's one of the things that I haven't shared, is we try to be as silly as humanly possible. Because when we're being silly, our brain can't be mad. So those are some of the things that remind me.
I think the thing that you really highlight is how we also are honest about our triggers. You know, how do we say to our kids, these are the things that get me really overwhelmed? Because it teaches us how to respect each other's boundaries and know each other at a deeper level, so we can also care for each other in ways that allow us to function at a healthier state as a family. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here and having this conversation. I hope our audience walks away with just one more tool in their tool belt. And at the end of the day, if all you have left to give is a deep breath and allowing yourself to walk away and come back and try it again, that's okay.
Next time on Together We Rise.
This is a safety issue. Things they got from adults that were not safe were very scary.
Thank you for joining us. We hope today's episode left you feeling inspired, encouraged, and maybe even a little lighter.
Remember, resilience isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, staying curious, and building stronger connections one moment at a time.
If this episode resonated with you, share it with a fellow parent or caregiver who might need the same reminder. Together, we can create a community that uplifts and empowers family everywhere.
Until next time, take care of yourself and your family. And never forget, the small, imperfect steps you take today are shaping the legacy you'll leave for tomorrow.
This series is brought to you by Tanager and the Meraki Institute of Learning. For more information, please visit tanagerplace.org.
Being a teenager is hard enough. Finding places to fit in, overcoming fears, and dealing with the stress of finding acceptance can be overwhelming. The LGBTQ Center at Tanager provides a safe and confidential environment for LGBTQ youth, families, and allies. Programs at the center are diverse and include support groups, mentoring programs, parent workshops, tutoring, and so much more. Meet new people and build a support network at the center. To learn more, visit tanagerplace.org. Tanager. Inspire, empower, heal.